All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the very first episode of the Fantasy Life. Week 1. NFL started yesterday. Before we get started about that, we have a lot of things to talk about. Trades, waivers. We've already got a couple of trade offers our way. Who to start this week, start them, sit them, stuff like that. It's going to be pretty cool. So before we get started with that, I just want to do a couple of introductions. First, I'm the big AC, Andy Chevalier. Did a show a couple years ago called The Fantasy Gridiron. Gave a lot of good fantasy advice, some good, some bad. Not gonna lie, had a bad season that year, so hard to be a little show the credentials there. That being said, I got a great broadcast partner, the coach, Chris DaCosta. Coach, tell
Yep,
us a
yep.
little about yourself. Tell us about yourself.
Well, Andy, I've been the commissioner of a couple leagues for a few years now, one of those leagues for about 6 years. And even though, I've been playing fantasy for a while, it's the one, and I do well in leagues and place. This is the one league I've actually never made the playoffs, and this is the season that it's going to change because I'm having a show with a co-host like you. You're my good luck charm. I'm going to ride you to the end.
I like that, man. I'm clearly you're the brains. I'm the beauty. Obviously, what else could it
Exactly.
be? What else could it be?
Don't let the
Um,
time fool you. I'm just still at work at the end of the day. Not on work hours. Don't worry.
You are just an average Joe. What can I say? You're just the average Joe. All right, my man. Before we get started with some fantasy advice, and we got a lot on the table. Yesterday was the kickoff.
Hmm.
Just trying to tell everyone watching. How'd you get into fantasy? When did you get started? How did you become such a fan? Why in God's name are we doing videos on YouTube right now? Just tell us how you got into it and why you're so passionate about it.
It's just fun. Honestly, I'm watching football anyway. I'm a huge 49ers fan, and it's something we dabbled in college. And then, it got more, competitive, more serious because it's the same 12 guys in my main league, and I've moved to Connecticut for a while. Guys moved to Florida, overseas, Vegas, and it's just a way for us to keep in touch. And through football, through sport, it's just awesome. Nothing's better than on a random Wednesday morning getting a text from somebody saying they're gonna beat the shit out of you on Sunday. So I think it's a great thing to do. Sorry, should I not curse on YouTube? I don't
No,
know.
you're good. You're good.
So I mean, it's just for fun, and it should be a good time, and it's just a way to keep in contact with my friends. That's why I'm doing it.
It's the fantasy life, not Sesame Street. All right, Coach. Coach,
Oh,
tell
and of
us
course,
what was
I
the
just want to.
first site you ever used on fantasy? If you remember the settings? Talk about it. What was the first one you ever used?
The first one I ever used was probably, oh my God, it was probably Yahoo, and it probably had the most ridiculous settings. I probably drafted a kicker like in the fourth round because I saw they scored a lot of points, something stupid like that. I remember my first year playing was the year that D'Angelo had 4 touchdowns in a game, and somehow was in the playoffs and got to like the semis because of it. So I was a huge D'Angelo fan for a while. That has not fared me well in recent years, but I'm pretty sure it was Yahoo over ESPN, no doubt.
Nice. I know at least for me, I don't know if you ever remember this site, but sandbox.com.
Oh
Sandbox.
yeah.
I use Sandbox. Actually, my dad, shout out to Greg Chevalier. He was really big into fantasy football, fantasy baseball too. And what he did was he had a roster on Sandbox. He had a ridiculous roster. I remember he had like Kurt Warner, Terrell Owens. It was the year where the Niners and the Rams were just ridiculous. He had Marshall Falk. It was just he had Ricky Williams when he was with the Saints. He had just an Steven Davis. I just remember he had this ridiculous lineup. I'd watch him every week, and it was just he had a lot of fun. And then eventually, Sandbox. We moved from Sandbox to Yahoo, and that's when I kind of got involved with my friends, and it was really interesting. It was just genuinely fun all the time. I always had a good time, and eventually we got a bunch of competitive friends, and then we moved from Yahoo to ESPN, and ESPN kind of is where I live now. I have gone from 1 or 2 money leagues to now I'm in 6 different money leagues. Nothing
Mhm.
ridiculous. Everything's under $100, but um, it's awesome, and the friends that I'm in these fantasy leagues with are my best friends in life. They really are. With exception of you, Coach, of course. With
Yeah. I
exception.
thought you said this wasn't Sesame Street though.
This isn't Sesame Street. You bring up a good point. You bring up a good point. But
We'll
yeah,
have
I'm
to
in
get
all
in the
different
league
types
together
of
next
leagues.
year. It'd be unfair. We'd be in the finals every time.
This is true. I had a pretty good season last year. In my 5 leagues, I went to the semi. I made the playoffs in 4 out of 5. The only one I didn't make the playoffs in, I was 8-5, and there was a 7-way tie. For 7 teams, we're 8-5, and I was at the bottom of the point, so I got kicked out. The rest of the leagues made the playoffs, made actually the semifinals in all 4 of the leagues I made the playoffs in. Made it to the championship in 2, and I actually won the title in one of my leagues.
Nice.
But no, it was a really good season, and it's awesome. I can't get enough of it. I'm in an auction league. I'm in a full redraft league. Um, I'm in a one keeper league. I just started a dynasty league this year.
Those
Um,
are fun.
so every league is different. It's really cool. Um, some aren't PPR, some are half PPR, some are full PPR. So it's not like I'm just doing the same league. It's all different types of leagues, and it's a lot of fun. Chris, let me ask you though, on average, before we get into the players and stuff,
Yeah.
um, what's like your general standard league? Like what in your mind, what is the most common league you play in?
I would say the most common league is probably not well. If you're asking in fantasy football universe or my universe, I'm going fantasy football universe here, which is 12 teams, non PPR. 4 points for passing touchdown, no bonuses. I would say that's the most standard, and I think that's where I'm going with most of my player study is that type of scoring system.
Mm-hmm.
Unless otherwise noted, there might be some guys I might say is better in PPR or if you get bonuses for long touchdowns, that type of thing. How about you?
For me, I'm a little bit different. I actually play in 0 leagues now, where it's just standard scoring, no PPR. That
Mm-hmm.
being said, I only play in one full PPR league, and the rest are half PPR. I feel like that evens it out. That's just my
Yeah,
opinion, but
most of mine
anything
are.
less than 12 team in my mind, I just feel like I don't know. It's you have a bunch of stars on your team, and it's just
Yeah.
like choosing between like two great stars, and I like to play I like to play some of these deeper guys that don't necessarily are like stars every week. That's just my opinion though.
No,
So
I agree. Yeah, and it's nice when you pick that starter. Like last year, my brother, Sunday morning, needed a receiver. He waited all week. He was thinking about it. He picked Marvin Jones. Guess which week he picked him up? We had 4 touchdowns.
for a
Like,
touchdown.
that's awesome. You wouldn't
Bingo,
play Marvin Jones in a 10-team league.
bingo.
You know what
All
I
right.
mean? And
So
you can remember that for a while.
I remember he went off pretty big. That he had like a
Against
couple of
Matt
games that
Hartnett,
was
by the
pretty
way.
nice. Made the red rifle look great. All right, we just had our drafts a couple weeks ago. Pretty much everyone had their majority of their drafts 3 weeks ago or earlier. Um, Really quickly, Chris, Coach, I want to talk to you about guys who I was targeting in drafts and why. And I'm going to lead it off. Let's start with the quarterback position.
All
Um,
right?
Now, just this is kind of like a general who you were targeting, who you felt like you were going to get in drafts. I'll start off quarterback. I was targeting this guy in a lot of leagues, and I only got him in like 2, and that's Tom Brady. And I'll tell you why. Before you ask, yes, I'm a diehard Patriots fan. But I'm gonna tell you why. Last season, he had statistically one of the worst seasons he's ever had, and he lost his 3 best offensive weapons. He's in my opinion, either the worst or the second worst division in football. There's almost never going to be a matchup where you're not confident with Tom Brady. Of
Mhm.
course, we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I just feel like the guy's stock couldn't be lower. And this is a guy who had the NFL passing title like a couple years, like touchdown title, only a couple years ago. He said it in '07. I mean, with the one of the greatest teams of all time when he had Randy Moss. The guy isn't that much different. It's just the weapons around him are different. The guy's super consistent. He doesn't throw interceptions really. His touchdown to interception ratio is just one of the best in the league, if not the best. And he was a guy who I just feel like was a clear target for me. I got him in a couple of leagues. And here's the best part, Coach. He was
Mhm.
going in like 6th or 7th round, and
That's what I was about to say. He's going late.
for a guy who led the league in touchdowns, who led NFL history in touchdowns, only a couple seasons ago, I thought it was a no-brainer.
I don't disagree with you, but '07 was a little while ago. I think Brady's going to be a good player this year and a good guy to target, but I'm going with more youth. I'm going with Russell Wilson. And this is his
Okay.
3rd year now. He's got a ring. He's got confidence, but he's had that since day one. He's had that since he was in college. I'm going for him the same reason why you're going for Brady. In a lot of leagues I was in, he was going the 8th round, 9th round, 10th round, and even a backup quarterback for some guys where I think he could be a legitimate starter. I mean, look at what he did last night. Um,
Yeah,
he's
is
got a
that why
healthy
you like
history.
him? Is that why you like him?
No, I thought of this before. With Percy Harvin looking healthy, again looking spry last night helps. But if you look at his numbers from his first 2 years compared to, and now he's not Aaron Rodgers before I say this, but in terms of turnover ratio, win percentage, QB rating, his first 2 years was pretty identical, almost on point with Aaron Rodgers as a starter. And he is one of two quarterbacks with a 100 QB rating or higher in and out of the pocket. And we know when Russell Wilson's out of the pocket, if you own him, you love seeing it. He's precise and he can take off. And the only other guy that does that is Peyton Manning, not taking off, but with the 100 QB rating. But he's clutch. He's going to make you money in 2-minute offenses. Fun to watch in the first half, fun to watch second half, end the games. And you're getting great value for him, so I like him a lot. Speaking of value, going to running backs, if you can get Pierre Thomas, I think he's going about where he should be in rounds. I've seen him as high as 5th round. I've seen him as late as 7th, and I think that's a pretty good cushion for him. But the Saints offense, I think they're going to score about 30 points a game this year. They're going against Atlanta twice, Bucks defense twice, which is an improved defense. But do you believe in Mark Ingram? I don't. Do you believe in Robinson? I don't. Could they do something? But on the long term, I believe in Pierre Thomas. He's going to get the touches. He got 70 catches last year when Darren Sproles was still there. He's just a player I like a lot, and I think he could do some damage as even a running back number 2. If you get him as a flex, even better. But
you bring a good point. You bring a good point about Pierre Thomas. I mean, it's easy. Everyone loves making a big deal about the new rookie running back, whatever team they're on. It's, this is the guy. He's going to be nuts. Show me first, and then I'll listen. Mark Ingram, he's been given countless opportunities, and I just don't believe him. Pierre Thomas isn't really a great feature back, but, I mean, the rock's got to go somewhere, and I don't think they're going to rely on a rookie, and they're not going to rely on Mark Ingram, who's really done nothing, and he's been given opportunities to do it. He just hasn't done it. The writing's on the wall for him to be good this season, but I just haven't seen it yet. So until then, I do like Pierre Thomas. He was a great guy. Here's the running back I was looking in every draft. I got him in half my leagues. And I'm all in on whoever is rushing the ball in Denver right now. I was all in on Monty Ball. Peyton Manning makes everyone he plays with and the running back position great. The edge, Joseph Adai, Noshawn Moreno, who was on one leg. He makes everyone around him good. It doesn't matter who it is. And as soon as he leaves, the running back is awful, with the exception of maybe Edgerrin James. But he's just great. He makes everyone around him awesome. And I'm just convinced I'm all in. That being said, if you draft Monte Ball, and if anyone watching this, if these guys are available in your waiver wire, I would pay strong attention, probably even give a roster spot to Ronnie Hillman and C.J. Anderson, and use last year's season as an example. Monte Ball, all right, was the clear-cut #1 guy in Denver. And then Noshawn Moreno just took his job just like that. Because Monte Ball couldn't hold on to the rock or whatever the issue was.
Couldn't block. You got to block for Peyton or get him on the bench.
No matter what, they're going to defend Peyton Manning at all costs. And whoever can do the job is whoever's going to do the job. I mean, realistically, how many are they going to put in the box, coach, against Monte Ball? Realistically, they're only going to put 5 or 6 guys. They got to defend against that air attack. So I'm huge on Monte Ball. If you can fit the roster spots, put Ronnie Hillman and C.J. Anderson on him, especially if you have Monte Ball. You can't draft Monte Ball where you could have drafted him and not have the insurance of C.J. Anderson, Ronnie Hillman. I have Ronnie Hillman and C.J. Anderson in literally all of my leagues except for one. And I have C.J. Anderson in every league. I have Monte Ball in half of my leagues. I think it's worth the roster spot because you're not drafting Monte Ball. You're drafting the Denver's rushing attack and everything that comes with it. Right. How about receivers, coach? Here's a guy I got in half of my leagues too. And it's not necessarily because I'm trying to get the same guy in all my leagues, which I'm sort of a fan of, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I really like, and that's Vincent Jackson from Tampa Bay, and I'll tell you why. This is a guy who is boom or bust in a lot of leagues. A lot of people have headaches with him because sometimes he'll have the 6 catches for 140 yards and 2 touches. Sometimes he'll have 3 catches for 28 yards, no touchdowns. And it's really frustrating. But here's why I like him. I think the Chicago Bears, Josh McCown coming over, is completely interchangeable with what the Tampa Bay Bucks are now. Lovie Smith, Josh McCown. I think Mike Evans and Alshon Jeffries, the way they play, are clones of each other. Dare I say Mike Evans might even be a better possession receiver than Alshon Jeffries. I think Vincent Jackson, Brandon Marshall, the way they play, Brandon Marshall's a little more physical and better in the goal line, but just the way they play, I think, are just very identical. The offenses are very identical. They improved the offensive line. Doug Martin is in line for a great season. A good running attack is the best way to have a great air attack. And I just think Vincent Jackson is just going to be a great guy. And if he's your wide receiver too, I think you're money right there. I
Oh
think you're
yeah, absolutely. And you know, speaking of the Bucks, my receiver is baby Vincent Jackson, the guy you just mentioned, Mike Evans. You
Oh,
may have
okay.
heard of Johnny Football in college, the Heisman. You want to know why he got those crazy plays and the completions? Because
Mike
Mike
Evans.
Evans is a beast. If you go back to those highlights with Manziel, look at some of those catches. Look at the broken tackles, the speed, the strength, the quickness. And if you're defending Tampa Bay, you got to keep an eye on Doug Martin. I know Doug down here last year, and you just mentioned Vincent Jackson. And when you got a guy as talented as Baby Vincent and Mike Evans, I know he's a rookie receiver, and history does not usually bode well for them. I think this guy's different. I think he's got a different makeup. He's in a good system, a good coaching staff, and a solid team where he can be a deep threat from time to time, and he can catch passes in the slant and just body people, especially in a half-point PPR league. With tight ends, I think that if you can't get Gronk and you don't get Julius Thomas and you don't get Jimmy Graham, obviously in the first round, you can make an argument for Vernon Davis even, but I think those big three guys, I think you might agree with me or Andy, if you don't get any of them, wait later. It's not worth going for Jay Witten or maybe a Kyle Rudolph, Dennis Pitta. I'm all about Zach Ertz. He showed flashes last year, the last 5 games of the season. Nick Foles seemed to like him a lot better than Selleck. And to be honest with you, I don't really believe in the Eagles receiving core. But I believe in Chip Kelly, and I believe in that offense. So Riley Cooper is not going to do what he did last year. Jeremy Maclin coming off injury, who knows? Jordan Matthews, a rookie. I think Zach Ertz is a Mr. Dependable and a guy that's going to get the rock a lot in Chip Kelly's offense.
I love me some Zach Ertz too, Coach. I think the writing's on the wall for Zach Ertz. He really, really should and could be great, just given the opportunity. I have no faith in Jeremy Maclin. I really don't. No. I think Riley Cooper is just a deep threat, and they're going to need a big body to pass to. Like Nick Foles, don't forget, was a top 5 quarterback in the games he played throughout the season. Like he really was great. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Zach Ertz, he has every opportunity to be good. One point you mentioned too, the top 3 tight ends. Like if you couldn't get one of those tight ends, I was punting the position, which punting basically means you're just waiting until the end. You're going to get whatever's left. And I really wasn't going for those middle guys too. However, like you said, I was big on Zach Ertz, but I'm also really big on 2 other guys. I'm really big on Travis Kelce, and I hate buying into the preseason hype. I'm really not a fan of that. Cue in my example of Zach Sudfield. That's my best example on why you don't believe preseason hype. But realistically, especially these first couple of seasons, Coach, Dwayne Bowe being out, I think Travis Kelce could be a great security blanket for Alex Smith.
And you know what? Alex Smith loves his tight end, and he loves those 8-yard dumps, first downs. You got Jamal Charles all day. If you got people spying Charles, Kelce's going to be there.
I'm not fearing Fasano at all. I don't know about you. I'm not fearing him at all. Another guy I really like, especially this week, and we'll talk a little more about it, Antonio Gates. Antonio Gates is still the guy in San Diego. I know he's old, pushing 55 or whatever, but the guy is really good. Ladarius Green's a great compliment to him, and I think Ladarius Green will be great eventually. But Antonio Gates is still the guy. He's getting all the first-team reps, and there's no one better Phillip Rivers loves to go to in the red zone than Antonio Gates. So he's a guy I'm more than happy to plug in as the last tight end on the board, more than happy to roll with him.
And knock on wood, he's healthy. Last year, he had a lot of knick-knack injuries, and as a veteran, that slows you down, especially in the tight end position when you're blocking and getting it constantly. He's looking healthy. So who knows? I agree with that one.
Nice. All right, Coach, let's talk about something else really quick. Let's talk about what everyone probably really wants to listen to. Stardom, sit-em advice. Who to start, who to sit. First and foremost, though, I want to stress this. I know you're a big advocate of this. When we're talking stardom sim advice, we're not going to include guys who are probably drafted in the top 4 rounds. If you draft a star, you're going to start your star. That's just what it comes down to. For those people who are honestly considering benching Aaron Rodgers, I think you're nuts. I know he wasn't that great last night. But you just start your starters. Like you start your stars. Like that's what it comes down to. Don't try to outsmart yourself. You got to start Aaron Rodgers. I know Michaela Polton. You wrote on our wall earlier, and you said, "Oh, I benched Aaron Rodgers this week for Colin Kaepernick." That's like one of the very few I might have like entertained the thought on because of Kaepernick's matchup. But realistically, in the long term, you really should not be benching your stars. That being said,
Now, Andy,
I
I'm gonna just
love
say
this week, Coach. Colin Kaepernick against the JV squad of Texas A&M. No, I'm sorry, that's the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are going to be the worst defense. They were the worst defense last year, and what they did to improve their defense is they let go of their three best defensive players.
Mm-hmm.
Not that smart in my mind.
No.
Colin Kaepernick is going to go off this week. I'm actually benching a guy I talked about earlier, Tom Brady, for Colin Kaepernick. I'm benching Tom Brady, not liking his matchup so much against Miami, but I'm loving Colin Kaepernick. I think he's going to be a top 5 QB at his position week 1. I think he's going to be a top 5 QB. And I'm just a big fan. I'm all in on the Niners offense, Coach.
You know, I'm going to cut the suspense. I'm a big Niners fan, but not being biased, I agree with you 100%. And Andy, Big AC, I'm going to let you do the running back right back to back because I got somebody knocking on my door and I know what they want. I'll be back in 15 seconds, not even. Sorry.
Coach, you're killing me, Coach. You're killing me. Another thing I want to mention really quick, too, if you're in a 2-quarterback league, another guy that we really liked is Geno Smith. I think Geno Smith is actually going to be really good this week against Oakland. I think the Jets' offense is actually going to be on the field a lot. And I think Geno Smith in a 2-quarterback league is actually going to be pretty good. If you have Cam Newton's not going to roll week 1. I think Geno Smith could actually be a pretty good fill-in if you're given the bottom of the barrel.
Running backs. Ironically, I got Cam in a league, and I'm going to the waiver wire to get Geno. So I'm with you. All
right, so you're eating you're taking the medicine. I like it. You're drinking the Kool-Aid with me, buddy. I like it. Another guy I like a lot this week at running back, old man Steven Jackson. All right, I know everyone's like, oh, how much longer can he play? He was such a headache last year. There's 2 reasons I really like Steven Jackson this week. 1, he ended the season hot, and history shows guys who end the season hot generally start the season pretty hot as well. And I'm a big fan of Steven Jackson this week. I'm not a fan of him long-term at all, but I'm a big fan of him this week. And there's another reason why. 2 of his 5 biggest games last year happens to be against his week 1 opponent, the New Orleans Saints. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. Matt Ryan's going to air it out, and it's going to open the box out a lot. Don't forget, Roddy White and Julio Jones are on the Falcons, so they got to defend against that air attack. It's going to open the box for Steven Jackson. I think he's going to do well. Devontae Freeman eventually is going to take over that job, maybe even by the end of the season. But while he's healthy, Steven Jackson, I like him week 1, Coach.
You know, for me, my formula is very similar to yours. Aside from the fact that, you know, that Atlanta-New Orleans game is going to have a lot of fantasy points in it this week, I'm going with an old guy, maybe not as reliable as Steven Jackson has been in recent years, but that has a stud running back behind him. And don't throw up in your garbage pans, guys, but Sean Green. I just said Sean Green. But listen here. I think KC's defense is a little overrated. He's the starter. He's going to get the rock. He's gotten, if you listen to the Titans camp, he's slimmed down. He's looking stronger. I think he could do a little damage this week. I think he's a nice little flyer pick, especially if you're a team that hasn't drafted. Maybe you didn't draft so well in your running backs, but you somehow got Sean Green. Not a bad plug-in this week. I like Sankey. I've been a Bishop Sankey fan since he's been at University of Washington. He is fast. He is talented, and I like him, but I don't like him quite yet. I think he's going to work his way into that role. I don't think Green's going to be good over the length of the season, but I think week 1 it's Green's time to, you know, put his money where his mouth is, keep this job or not. I think week 1 he does some damage against Kansas City. Might be a little on the bold side, but I like him.
I'm going to call you out if Sean Green isn't good next week. I'm calling you out if he isn't.
Sean Green's burnt me before. I learned my lesson. Look at that Jets roster. Look at this Titans roster. I think people are looking at Kendall, right? I think people are looking at Justin Hunter. I think they're gonna not worry about Sean Green, and that's where he's gonna exploit them. That's just my 2 cents. Speaking of people to exploit, do you believe in the Washington Redskins defense this year?
I believe in them as much as I believe in the Dallas Cowboys defense this year.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't believe in them. And Andre Johnson, who had a quote unquote down year last year with 1,400 yards, I think he's going to tear apart this defense. I'm willing to bet that he's going to have 6 catches or more in this game. I'm not worried about D'Angelo Hall, but Andre Johnson's a guy I want to start. Yes, maybe some people got him in the 4th round, but I think I've seen him slip in other drafts. I think some people, if you have him, you should start him. But I've heard some people being a little nervous about having him. He's in a lot of trade talks in the leagues that I'm in. But I think he's going to be putting up stud numbers this week that'll make you feel happy that you did draft this guy when you got him because you probably got some value with him. He's a potential #1 receiver that could be a 3 on some teams. So
They should nickname our show to the AARP Fantasy League because we're mentioning guys like Steven Jackson, Antonio Gates, Andre Johnson, Sean Green. Oh, man, we love the old guys this week. I'm going to go a little bit younger.
I'm going to go young soon. I'm going to go young soon.
Well, I'm going to go a little bit younger too, Coach. I'm going to go with a guy who I think if he's going to do well, this is the week he's going to do well. He's the #1 target, and someone's got to catch the balls there. Eric Decker. Especially in PPR leagues, I think Eric Decker actually is going to do well. They're facing Oakland. I have no faith in the Oakland secondary at all. I think the oldest secondary in the league.
You got it.
I'm just not a fan. I'm not a fan of Oakland's defense, and I think that, like I said with Geno Smith, I think the Jets are going to have the ball a lot this game. I think they're going to have the ball a lot. Someone's got to catch the passes, and I think it's going to be Eric Decker. I think he's going to be the guy to do well. And don't forget, Oakland secondary, 26th in the league against the pass last year. So I think it's going to be a lot of Eric Decker. I think he's going to get a lot of targets, maybe not the touchdowns, but I think he'll get the receptions.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Coach? Not awful, right?
I think Decker's going to, he's another guy that slipped in a lot of drafts that I picked, a lot of drafts that I was selecting in. And I don't understand why. I know Peyton Manning obviously made him a better player, and, he got more extrapolated numbers because he's in Denver. But who else is there in New Jersey? And regardless, I know it's New York Jets, but they play in New Jersey, and that's a terrible state for anybody watching.
Just go 3
but I think Decker is going to have some points, maybe even some yak, and do well against this AARP defense that's the Oakland Raiders.
Nice. All right, let's move to tight ends, Coach. I mentioned this guy earlier, Antonio Gates. I think he's going to have a really, really big game. And it's not just because he's the #1 there and he's a big red zone guy. There's a couple other factors. One, they're facing Arizona. Arizona was dead last against the tight end last year. That's the way to beat the Arizona Cardinals. There's a great front line. There's a great secondary. The middle of the field, they're not great against tight ends, and they just – I think Antonio Gates and Darius Green are just in line for a big, big game. Also, Antonio Gates, one of the best Monday Night Football players on the planet, especially at tight end. I don't know. I don't know if I can just picture the announcer saying it, but old reliable Antonio Gates, Rivers' favorite target. It's just sometimes in football I can just hear them say that, and it just happens. Antonio Gates just shows up on Monday Night Football. He's done it for the past 5 years, and I think he's just going to show up again.
I love Antonio Gates, and I can't wait. I hope I don't pass out during that 10:20 start time, but I have a feeling that he's going to do some damage against Arizona. But you know who my tight end is?
Who?
This is a guy that I think people necessarily aren't happy that he's on their team. He's not a sexy player, but Heath Miller against Cleveland. Again, you mentioned the Pittsburgh stats against Cleveland, but if you didn't get those top 3 guys and you didn't get one of those later guys like Zach Ertz and Kelsey and the guys we've been talking about endlessly at this point, Heath Miller is a guy that's going to get you some points. Maybe he steals a touchdown, but if you have Joe Hayden covering Antonio Brown and you know that Cleveland and Pittsburgh aren't going to be throwing the ball deep downfield constantly, they're going to try to move the ball and matriculate downfield slowly. Heath Miller is a guy that could get you some catches and maybe get you in the end zone. And if you're in that situation, he's not a bad flyer to go for. He might be a free agent in your league. But I like this guy actually better than some people that are being hyped up like Kyle Rudolph or Dennis Pitta or Owen Daniels, if you believe in Owen Daniels in Baltimore. But I like Heath Miller to do some damage this week against Cleveland for sure.
Interesting. And another good thing I thought of when you talked about Heath Miller is, say if they put Joe Hayden on Antonio Brown, who are they going to rely on? Marcus Wheaton, guy who's second year getting his first real start at receiver. I don't know. I think Ben's going to go with a guy he's more comfortable with, Heath Miller. Heath Miller kind of had a down season last year, but he came off a pretty bad injury, and it's really hard for a tight end to really come back from an injury like he did and really be 100%. He's got a full season of rest under his belt, and I think he's going to come back strong. He's a high-volume guy. I think he's going to get a lot of targets, and and in PPR, I think he's going to get you double-digit points this week.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's why I started him.
All right, bro. How about you start us off with guys we don't like this week, Coach? How about some guys you want to sit? Start with the quarterback position.
For me, I don't think this guy is a bad player to have on your team, depending on the value you get him. But this week, Tony Romo, I think he's not in for a pleasant opening of the season. He's got question marks coming off back surgery. He's going up against the Niners defense, which in the last 3-4 years has been one of the top defenses in fantasy and in general in football. Yes, the Niners should be winning. Yes, Dallas should be throwing the ball downfield. But even if that happens, even if Romo puts up decent statistics, I think he turns it over 2 to 3 times in this game and lowers your fantasy totals. I think there's some better options out there, like a Phillip Rivers or a Jay Cutler if you're talking about Tony Romo. I think he's a guy you sit if you have another option at quarterback. What are you thinking about quarterback sitting this week?
I'm thinking, I hate to say it, I'm going to go with my boy Tom Brady. I know I was targeting him a lot of drafts, but I think there's a lot of better options. I think I have him as like my 11th or 12th best quarterback this week. He statistically just doesn't do that well against Miami for whatever reason. I mean, it's nice that he has all his offensive options, but the games in Miami, the Fish play him tough every single year, and I'm just really not feeling it. I want to see one game out of him and see what's up. I mean, I like him virtually against every other matchup. Miami just seems to play him tough every year, and he had 2 of his worst games in the season last year against Miami. If you can avoid it and plug in a guy like Kaepernick, if you did the double QB or if you had the choice between him and Russell Wilson, I know you can't really go back in time, I probably would have started Russell Wilson over Tom Brady this week. I don't know. If you're wishy-washy, I would go against Tom Brady this week. And the season long, I'm going to go with the guy. I'm going to go with the guy down the road, but I just think this week...
It sounds like you're going to lose a lot of week 1 matchups then, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. Every guy I like has not the best week 1 matchup. Here's another guy I'm going to sit, and this was a guy another guy that I'm targeting in a lot of leagues. I got him in a bunch of leagues, but I just don't like his matchup this week, and that's America's running back, Maurice Jones-Drew. He's a big fantasy guy.
What America do you live in?
He has his own fantasy football show on Sirius XM Fantasy. But I just don't like his matchup this week. They're facing the Jets. The Jets have a really Swiss cheese secondary, but they have an amazing front 7. And they're facing Rex Ryan. And here's the thing about Rex Ryan. Yeah, he kind of gets criticized a lot, but here's the facts. He's 7-1 against rookie quarterbacks. 7-1. He blitzes the crap out of him, makes him confused. They're going to pack the box. They're going to force Derek Carr to beat them through the air. And I think that's not good news for Maurice Jones-Drew owners. I think they're going to pack the box. And I'm looking for a single-digit game out of Maurice Jones-Drew.
I couldn't agree with you more. I'm not a believer in MJD this year in general. I think he's not a bad guy to sweep up late if he's still there, post round 10. But I agree with you. He might be a guy that's on my sit list every week though. For me, we've mentioned this guy. But Bishop Sankey, great for the season, great guy to have and stash. I just don't see why you play him week 1. You've got to have other running back options out there.
So let me get it straight. You like Sean Green.
I know.
You don't like Bishop Sankey. All right.
Just for week 1.
The viewers at home, if you're confused, I am too. I'm a little confused right now. But I'm gonna let Coach explain himself.
Look, I love the guy. He's talented. He's a monster. He's going to have a good season. But in week 1, I don't play him. I don't think he gets more than 10 touches. Does he do something explosive with one of those touches? Sure. If you're desperate, which you probably are because you had to probably reach for this guy. He had a lot of hype this year. I think he was getting drafted a little too early in some of my leagues. I saw him go as early as round 3. I think that's a bit of a reach. So you got to play him if you drafted him around 3 probably based on the rest of your draft. But I just think you're in for a world of hurt for week 1 and maybe your first few weeks of the season. Hopefully, again, he catches a screen pass and goes the distance off it to recover. But I don't want a guy as my running back 2 who's getting, or even 1 for some people, if he's getting less than 10 touches a game. But I believe him for the season. This is my surprise sit-em, though. my receiver.
Okay.
It's another guy I love, but he just injured his ribs. He's playing against Patrick Peterson on Monday Night Football. And if you know Peterson's history, I know he's a young guy, but he shines when he's on prime time. And especially with all the trash talk this past season, with off season with Richard Sherman and him on Twitter and in person and all that, I think he's going to try to send a message to Keenan Allen. I love Keenan Allen. Phillip Rivers loves to feed him, but I think Antonio Gates is going to be the guy that gets a lot of points on Monday night like you. I see their running game playing a role against Arizona this week. And I think Keenan Allen will be, he'll be serviceable. He'll get you the points, but he's not going to get you the points you're looking for, that you're desiring. I actually see Keenan Allen getting less than 10 points this week. Part of that's a hunch. I'm telling you, call me out next week, AC. I'm looking forward to it. I'm drinking the Arizona Patrick Peterson juice.
Oh, you don't have to worry about me calling you out. It's gonna happen. I'm definitely calling you out. You don't have to worry about that, Coach. Here's the receiver I'm benching in a lot of leagues. I mean, if you drafted him, he's your probably wide receiver 3 anyways, but I really wouldn't even start him this week if you can avoid it. And that's Mike Wallace against the New England Patriots. 2 words, Revis Island. The guy is the best in the business for a reason. If I'm the New England Patriots and I'm Bill Belichick, in Bill I trust, but that being said, I'm going to let Brian Hartline beat me. If Brian Hartline beats us, then so be it. I'm taking Mike Wallace out of the equation. Revis Island's going to play man-to-man on him. I like Mike Wallace long-term, but week 1, I am avoiding him at all costs. I'm not putting him in my lineup if I can avoid it. I'm even considering I'm really thin at wide receiver in the league, and I have Mike Wallace. I'm honestly considering putting in Donnie Avery from the Kansas City Chiefs over Mike Wallace. That's how convinced I am that Mike Wallace is going to have a bad game. I am just convinced.
I mean, look at the Revis's history. Bagels across the board for a lot of great stud first-round, second-round receivers in fantasy history. And I have 2 words for you, Mike Wallace. I just don't like him. I think he's overvalued. I know last year he had a different offensive coordinator with Sherman from Texas A&M who got fired. Mike Wallace is a talent, but I don't see it anymore. Maybe it's because he was on my team last year and he burnt me, and it was terrible. I think he had 1 game or maybe 2 with 100 yards, but I just don't believe in him all season. Great sit for this week. Who are you thinking for defenses?
Really quickly for defenses, and this is if you have like a good defense, I mean, just start them, whatever. Yeah. But this is for people who stream defenses. I genuinely pick defense as either my last or second to last pick, so I love to stream defenses. One defense that I do not like this week, however, and they were kind of drafted a little high, is the Denver Broncos. I think it's going to be a shootout with them and Indy. Denver, I think, was like the ranked like 4th or 5th best defense. And they're just going to be in a lot of shootouts this year. Not really feeling it. I'd bench them. I'd plug in like the Eagles or Pittsburgh. A lot of defenses that were just undrafted this year. I would just go with one of them instead of Denver.
Mm-hmm. For me, I'm going to go with Buffalo. I think they're a good defense. They're decent overall. They were drafted a lot. But against Chicago at home, when you got Cutler going to Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey, Forte, I think that 4-headed monster in Chicago is just going to eat up a Buffalo team that just didn't look very confident. I don't know if it's because they're depending on a lot of young guys with E.J. Manuel for leadership and Sammy Watkins. They got Fred Jackson there. But they didn't look like a confident team, a team that had a lot of hype in the season. But I think they're going to kind of get crushed this week in Chicago. So I don't want any part of Buffalo on either end of the ball really this week, to be honest with you. So that's one defense I'm definitely avoiding for sure.
I agree. All right, let's do a couple of bold predictions this week, Coach. I know you already love this part. Coach, let's go with your bold prediction of the week. Who's going to be your standout player?
I have 2, but I'm going to share my what I think is the boldest one. You know how many rushing touchdowns Carolina allowed last year? 3.
3? Wow, 3. That's nuts.
What were you about to guess?
I was going to say 3 because I know everything.
Oh, okay. But I think Dougie Martin, maybe he won't be rushing, but I think he scores twice.
Twice?
I think he scores twice. I like this Tampa Bay team. I think they're going to put up points this year. I think if you can get a piece of that pie, it's a time to invest and indulge. But I like Dougie Martin to score not once, not twice. The year of redemption. Teach me how to Dougie. Let's go.
My
Drop the
my
mic.
bold, my bold prediction of the week is Colin Kaepernick will be the #1 fantasy point scorer after week 1. He's going to score the most. I think he could have 1 or 2 rushing touchdowns. He's going to have a couple in the air. I think he's going to just completely destroy week 1 like he did Green Bay last year week 1. I think Colin Kaepernick after week 1 will have the highest fantasy point total in standard leagues. I think he's just going to go bananas. All right, here's our question of the week. Before we answer a question that we had on our Facebook page, really quickly, the question of the week, and I'm going to post this in the comment, who will have a better fantasy football year? Larry Fitzgerald or the guy playing opposite of him, Michael Floyd? Coach, what do you think?
See, for me, I think Michael Floyd was hyped. I think they're both good players. You can get either one of them on your team for the right value. They're worthwhile. They're fun to watch. I think this Arizona team's going to be good. But if I had to pick one guy, I'm going, especially in a PPR format, I'm going Larry Fitzgerald all day. This guy has not, remember the years where he had Skeleton throwing him the ball and just quarterbacks that are coming off the street pretty much. He was still getting 5 catches, 6 catches a game and having decent fantasy numbers. Now he's got a little more rapport with Carson Palmer. He's got Michael Floyd, who we're talking about, the other end of the ball. You got to give him some attention. I think Larry Fitzgerald is an underrated player in the league and in fantasy. I'm going Larry. I expect him to have, again, reemerge as a wide receiver 1 this year and the year in the top 12.
I'm going against you, buddy. I'm saying enough with the old guard. I'm sick of the old talk. Bring in the new guys. Michael Floyd's the future. I love him. I was trying to get him in all my dynasty leagues and my keeper leagues. I really like him. I know your buddy Pat Hartnett at home is going to love this. Michael Floyd, all in. Let's go. I think it's his year. I think he's going to break out. I think he's going to be the guy in Zona, and I think Carson Palmer's just going to sling the rock. Here's the thing. I hate Carson Palmer as a fantasy guy, but I love his receivers because he's a guy who could throw 3-4 interceptions, and he's going to sling the rock no matter what. He's not going to stop throwing. I love me some Carson Palmer receivers, not players. All right, Coach, we got some questions this week. We've already got a question, a receiver question. John Hutton, he's actually in a couple of my leagues. He actually had an honest question. I hope I'm not facing him this week because he has a great wide receiver question. He has a plethora of wide receiver options. He needs to start 4 of them. I'm not sure. He did not say if it's PPR or standard. Yeah. Let's just assume it's standard. He has the choice between Pierre Garçon, Alshon Jeffries, Emmanuel Sanders, Michael Crabtree, Jeremy Maclin, Brandon Cooks, and Sammy Watkins. Wow.
That's pretty good.
Good job drafting receivers in that league, John. Very good job.
I hope he's got running backs.
Yeah, I hope he's got some running backs. If I were to pick 4, though, standard or PPR, I think it's the same decision for me either way. I think Jeffries and Sanders is a no-brainer. You got to start Alshon Jeffries. You got to start Emmanuel Sanders with Welker not playing. After, I think you got to get Pierre Garçon in there. You drafted him early. You got to throw him in there. He's the #1 guy. He has all the targets on the team. He's going to be the guy. And I think normally it's going to be between Crabtree and Cooks, but you got to get some part of that San Francisco offense against the Cowboys week 1. I'd go Crabtree. So Pierre Garçon, Jeffries, Emmanuel Sanders, and Crabtree. Coach, do you agree?
I'm pretty close. I think off the bat, I'm benching Sammy Watkins and Jeremy Maclin. Don't believe in Jeremy. Sammy, rookie, show me something. And Alshon Jeffrey and Crabtree are must-starts, just based on everything we've talked about so far. So that leaves me with 3 guys for 2 positions, Brandon Cooks, Pierre Garçon, and Emmanuel Sanders. Now, I'm high on Pierre Garçon. I got him in the 4th round. I kept him, actually, as a keeper this year, and I like Garçon. I don't know how you bench Emmanuel Sanders, though. Wes Welker getting suspended, and with that Denver offense, man, I'm salivating if I got Emmanuel Sanders at a decent value. So to me, it comes down to Cooks and Garçon. And if you want to gamble, you go with Cooks. I don't think you're going to be upset if you do that against Atlanta. But like you said, you drafted Garçon, you play Garçon. You go with Garçon, Sanders, Jeffrey, and Crabtree this week. But you could convince me on Cooks if you wanted to have a little fun, I suppose.
I'm a big fan of Cooks this year too, especially Kenny Stills is not playing. So I wouldn't crucify you. I wouldn't hang you in the middle of Times Square if you benched one of those guys for Cooks. I would not call you crazy. But I think
the only guy that's not benchable is Alshon Jeffrey, though. Like, absolutely no way. I know you said Crabtree too, but I think Alshon Jeffrey is a must every week, without a doubt.
I think you can't bench Sanders either right now. I think if you were to bench Emmanuel Sanders right now, I think you got to be on something because he's going to be the #2 in the best offense in football.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion. Folks, thank you so much for putting comments and questions. If you have anything else you have questions about, really quickly, we're going to talk about a Survivor League. Me and Coach do a Survivor League. We pick one team a week. There's no spread involved, just a team that we think are going to win. Coach, is there a team that you want to tell the viewers that you really like for your Survivor pool? Who do you think is going to win this week? Who's the lock?
For me, I talked about Buffalo not being the sit-em defense, Buffalo being the sit-em defense, so I'm all in on Chicago. Like I said, I think there's some other good matchups out there you can pick from, but depending on how you do Survivor pools, if you have to pick a team once for the season and that's that, versus if you can pick them a couple times, you want to save some of your stud teams like Denver and New England, Seattle, what have you, based on their matchups this week. I think Chicago is the team to pick, especially when they have tougher matchups within the division throughout the year.
I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles against Jacksonville. I think if you're in a Survivor pool, I think a good rule of thumb is follow Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville's going to be really, really bad this year. Just follow Jacksonville. When in doubt, go pick whoever's facing Jacksonville. I think they're going to be bad. I also like the Steelers a lot at home against Cleveland. Cleveland is 0-10 in their last 10 games at Pittsburgh. Brandon Hoyer, Johnny Manziel, whoever you want to throw in a quarterback, they just aren't going to get it done in Pittsburgh at home, week 1. It's not going to happen. Better coach, better team at home. I got the Steelers or the Eagles. I think they're both locks this week. Really quickly, Coach, 2 more things I want to talk about. Big news, big injury already. Andre Ellington perhaps out for the season. Andre Ellington looks like you got to get his backup. Dwyer, is he the no-brainer handcuff?
I know we're talking about old versus young. Dwyer is a guy that has burned me before, but he's had opportunities in Pittsburgh in the past and he just fizzled. I think if you remember back a couple years ago, a stud out of Virginia Tech, Ryan Williams, was a guy that the Cardinals loved and invested and put in time and energy in, and they cut him. They cut him because they want to save room for Stephen Taylor. I think if you want to handcuff Ellington and you got to go Arizona running back for your choices, Taylor's the obvious pick for me over Jonathan the Truth Dwyer.
Wow, so you're going – I mean, in all of my leagues, literally, Coach, all of my leagues, Dwyer has been picked up. I found this news out, I think, around like 3 o'clock today. I look on the waiver, every team had picked him up. It was kind of unreal for me. But you think Stephen Taylor's the guy?
I think if you're looking at it for a long term, if you drafted Ellington like I did in the second round in a PPR league, that was also a keeper, late second round, and you have this news, I think you're not just thinking about week 1. I think you got to think about the season a little bit. And if you're going to be thinking about the season, Taylor's the guy that's going to overstep Dwyer when he fails yet again in Arizona in the desert.
Last thing I want to talk about, Coach, speaking of waivers, Josh Gordon might play in the NFL this season, as ridiculous as that is. Coach, they're thinking about possibly changing the rule, putting in a new thing with the NFL, a new rule that might actually let him and Wes Welker play. Is Josh Gordon worth using your waiver wire pickup, or is this guy just a joke and he's not going to play?
If it's a waiver wire pickup, I think absolutely. It's early in the season. It's not make or break, and you know what? The risk is outweighed by the reward here. If someone still has them and they're trying to lure you into a trade that you just don't think is a good trade, it may not be worth the risk there to lose some value that you obviously have on your roster right now. Like everyone at the beginning of the season, right? Everyone's optimistic and hopefully and ready to go. But if I had the waiver wire spot, I think I would roll the dice in week 1, try to get a guy that was the best receiver in fantasy last year after missing 2 games. Why would you not?
Coach, I'm gonna go with this. I think there's a 10% chance Josh Gordon actually will play football this year, and here's why. I thought when I heard this and the rule change, I'm like, there's just no way this is gonna happen. But don't forget, this is the same NFL that let Ray Rice only sit 2 games after beating his wife. Roger Goodell just gets bullied into these situations where he just wants to let the stars play. It's unreal. I think anything's possible. Like, I really do. The more I think about it, the more examples that are thrown at me, I think it's pretty realistic that this could happen. If you have free agent money, you're in a league where you have to spend free agent money to get a guy, I really think it's worth it. I'd be willing to empty maybe about 10 to 15% of your free agent money for this guy. The simple fact is, if he plays, he's going to be a top 5 receiver. He's awesome. He's the man. If you can make a trade to give up peanuts to get this guy, I think it's worth it. Find that guy who has Josh Gordon who just isn't a fan. He's like, he's not going to play. He's dumb. I'd really pick him up. I think it's definitely worth the risk. The guy is just a stud. If you're in a keeper league and you can get this guy,
Exactly,
he's gonna be great value. He's probably gonna play next year, especially how everything's turning out. I really like Josh Gordon. I think it's worth the gamble. Even if there's only a 10% chance that he's gonna play, I think it's totally worth the gamble.
And if that suspension is down to 8 games and you have a good roster right now, and you feel like you're one of the front runners, why not risk it? Go use that waiver wire pick. And then who do you have in the playoffs, unless he gets busted again? Josh Gordon just sitting there, waiting, lurking, ready to tear it up in the second half of the season. I agree. It's worth it.
All right, Coach. Folks, if you're watching, we're going to wrap up the program. We're going to come back week 2. It's going to be a lot shorter. I know this was a pretty long show. We're going to do it a lot shorter next week. Just do some quick stardom sit-ems, some waiver, maybe some trade questions, and that's about it. Answer our question, though. Let us know. Who do you like more? Who do you think will be a better fantasy football player at the end of the year? Larry Fitzgerald or Michael Floyd? That's going to wrap it up. I'm the Big AC, Andy Chevalier. That's Chris.
Coach Bench Keenan Allen.
The coach, Bench Keenan Allen DaCosta. Oh, man. I'm going to call you out next week, Coach. I got to call you out on that.
I'm ready to answer that call.
All right, folks. If you're not watching this live, we're going to try to be live every single Friday at 5 o'clock, around that time. If you can't watch live, that's totally cool, because we're just going to put this on YouTube as soon as it's done, assuming that YouTube will let us. So thank you so much for watching. Any questions, Survivor comments, waiver wire questions, trade questions, let us know. Put it in the comments either on YouTube or on me or Coach's Facebook wall, and let us know. We're going to try our best to answer that. Until then, I'm the Big AC. That's Coach DaCosta. We're going to see you next week, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. See you next time on The Fantasy Life.